This Labor Day, HomeDepot.com is your one-stop shop for all things decor, with up to 30% off furniture, mattresses, home decor, and kitchenware. Online, it's a Labor Day savings event. Out there, it's a whole new way to enjoy your space. Whether it's finishing touches or a total transformation, find everything you need to make your home feel more like home at HomeDepot.com/decor. Free delivery on select items $45 or more, U.S. only, valid through September 15th, 2021.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychek. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me, as always, each and every week, the one, the only, Mr. Doug Hychek. How you doing this afternoon or evening?
Good.
Or whatever you're listening, folks. How you guys doing? And Doug, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I thought you were talking to me.
I was kind of talking to everybody that might be listening right now because I'm trying to be nice and welcome them to the show.
I'm the only one that can answer, though.
So you are the only one that can answer.
So I thought you were talking to me.
No. Well, I was talking to you and them at the same time. So there. I was addressing everybody at one time. So I got some news on my end because, you know, you normally do all the talking and I just kind of sit here going, yep, compelling and rich story there. Yeah. Anyhow, my beautiful and talented wife, unfortunately, she has the COVID-19.
The COVID.
And the COVID. The one COVID that's out there. Well, there's many COVIDs, but COVID-19. So, and so does my 14-year-old son. Now, the reason why I bring this up is, everyone, you know, if you have it, it's horrible. Don't get me wrong. It's like having the super flu. But also a lot of people, including her, that have had it, and your mileage may vary. So don't tell me that it's not bad or it's bad or isn't bad. I can only speak from my own family's experience. They're doing fine with it. They have more symptoms of the flu, the respiratory type flu, than they do anything else. Hasn't gone to their lungs. Everyone's doing just fine. Now, after having it, several people that I've talked to about, okay, what do I do? How do you get over it? What did you do to combat it? Most everybody that's had it now, again, this is just anecdotal. This is not empirical. This is not evidence. This is not fact. This is just people telling me that it was way overhyped compared to what they thought they're going to get. What the vast amount of people get, they're fine with. They get over it quickly, about a week's duration, and you're feeling better. And that's the vast amount of people. Not to say that there is not the other side of that coin where people react badly to it. But for most of us that will get it, you're going to be okay, provided you're not immunocompromised, you don't have any underlying health conditions, stuff like that. So if you do get it, and I can speak from her experience taking care of her, rest, lots of fluids, treat it like you would the flu, and take precautions, and you'll be all right, by and large.
It's like Russian roulette.
You just never know. You just never know. So she's doing fine. He's doing fine. Yes, they're tired. Yes, they're not feeling well. But thank God, I can only thank God for them being all right so far, and I hope they continue to do so. Because Doug, as you know, my wife is my life. You know, she's everything to me. So if you guys can spare a prayer, feel free to do so. Would really appreciate it if you throw her in your prayers, and I'll throw you in mine.
So, all right, let's get off the the Downer Debbie topic.
Oh, come on, man. The Downer
COVID,
Debbie.
COVID. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Put the news on. That's all you hear.
I know. It is one of those things. I know you've had things happen to you this week on a lighter note. At
Sure.
least that's what you communicated with me before we started.
Sure. Well, one, remember the exploding egg?
Yeah,
story?
I do. The time bomb eggs. Yes.
I totally got away with it.
Really?
Totally.
Like
100%.
Like never suspected anything.
Nope. I never got caught.
Wow.
But my garbage cans, I threw that junk, all the exploded eggs in the garbage can. It got so foul. I had to call the waste company to have my 2 garbage cans exchanged, for new ones.
Yeah.
Because it was, oh my God, it was bad. It smelled like the streets of New Orleans after Mardi Gras.
And I've been there for after Mardi Gras.
Oh,
That's saying something. I do.
It's kind of a combination of beer,
vomit,
puke,
yep,
food.
Yep.
Kind of, yeah. It just turns into a soup. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like the state fair. The state fair has that same smell. If you go the last,
it does when
day.
It's done. Yeah. Wherever a mass amount of people congregate, there's bound to be a smell afterwards. That's what I've found out in my life.
So anyhow, I got away with it. So
you're proud of yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, and today it's just beautiful. I mean, blue skies, no smoke. We don't have any smoke. Humidity dropped. So I just got back from like a 10-mile bike ride right before the show. And but before I went, I looked up. I went to look out that big cathedral type window in my back. Yeah. So I look up and there's a big horsefly, and he's crawling, up, and then he's
mocking you.
Yeah, but I can't stand it. I got to get rid of it, right? I'm like Walter in Breaking Bad. Remember the scene where the fly's loose in his lab and his
meth lab? Yes.
Spends days trying to get that damn fly. So I see this thing and I'm like, okay. Because I'm thinking the thing will get me when I'm sleeping.
It's plotting your demise.
Yeah, it's plotting my demise. So I'm going to plot its demise. So I'm thinking, what can I throw at the window and kill the fly? Because it's really high up. It's like 20 feet in the air. So what can I throw at the window and kill the fly and not leave a mess?
A brick. You threw a brick at it.
No. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking, just looking everywhere. What can I throw? So I grab Yvette's pillow.
You're going to put bug guts on this poor lady's pillow.
Shh.
What the hell is wrong with you? First you destroy eggs and get away with it. You're on borrowed time at this point, because there is going to be a time where you pull one of these shenanigans.
Yeah.
And she's going to get you.
So I grab the pillow and I cock it back. You cock it back behind you. And then, of course, the damn fly slides back down. So I can't do it. So this pillow's heavy. So, I can't hold it there forever. So I'm waiting. And all of a sudden he climbs back up, and perfect thing. And I cock back the pillow, and then he slides back down. So I wait. And I sit there just like a hunter.
So this is in your home. This is on the window inside. Why don't you just get a cup and put it over him?
What?
A cup. Trap him in a cup.
How can I? It's 20 feet in the air. What, am I going to get a ladder?
Anyhow.
It's a big window. It's that big picture one. Anyhow. So finally he's in the perfect spot, and I whip the damn pillow. Boom. Direct hit. He's gone. And I'm thinking, dang, I'm good.
Oh, no, he's not that gone.
So I just wait there, I'm just waiting, checking it out, and I wait. Finally, I go leave. I go get a cup of coffee, come back. There he is, climbing up that damn window again. A little slower, though, this time. He's not quite as speedy. He's probably been injured a bit. So I take the same pillow and I cock it back and I throw it even harder at the window. Bosh. Gone.
Wow, we already have a question from the audience for you, by the way.
What?
Do you ever leave your house?
Yeah, I just said I just got
That
back.
was the question.
Oh my God, I just got back from a 10-mile bike ride.
This person says last week it was the eggs happy in your house. Now this time it's the horsefly happy in your house. Doug, do you leave your home?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. I do. I just got back from a 10-mile bike ride. Okay. Today was beautiful. But the other night, I volunteered to help my neighbor build an e-bike, right? A really good one, a mid-drive. Because I had sold him a fat tire bike like 2 years ago. Because I ordered two by mistake. And they both came, and I'm like, oh, geez. So I sold him one. So I figured he's going to wheel up this fat bike to put a motor on it and the battery and all this. It's already a ton of work. Oh, no. He shows up with like a stack. It's like 5-foot tall stack of parts, and his bike is totally still in the box, unassembled.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh my God, dude, I got to put the bike together and I got to put all this stuff on. And I had promised him we'd be done by evening. So Lord knows everything really went smooth, and we got done. And we actually, like 8 beers later, we ended up taking the bike out for a ride with my bike and went riding at midnight. It's awesome. We got it done.
Oh, wow. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun, but you had no idea that you weren't anticipating the construction of bike A.
Well, I figured he had 2 years to put it together.
He had 2 years to put it together. He just never got to it.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I want to go back to flies.
Oh, good.
Go back to flies.
Good, let's go back to flies.
We want to all talk about flies. Flies and COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you ever seen those commercials for the bug assault? It shoots like a shotgun of salt.
I have, yes.
So I'm thinking, well, when that fly was crawling up, I'm thinking, damn, I wish I had one of those bug assaults. But then I called Adam, and I'm like, do you have, because he's got every gadget. It's like, oh my God, he's Mr. Gadget. So I call him up, and he goes, oh yeah, I've got one. See, I'm like, I knew you'd have one. And he goes, but it's broken.
Oh no.
He said it broke like after 3 shots. And I'm like, oh my God, you're kidding.
I don't think they're really built to last. I remember the product.
It's plastic.
It's plastic, yeah. What you gotta do is get yourself a pump action Winchester.
Yeah, that would have done it. I would have taken the whole window out.
Put load it full of rock salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, if I wouldn't have been admiring the blue, I haven't seen the blue sky in forever. If I wouldn't have been admiring the blue sky, I wouldn't have saw the fly. I wouldn't have tried to kill the fly.
This is true.
But, think about it. I hate flies and I love problems. I love problems. So I've got 2 things. I want to kill the fly, and I'm trying to solve how to do it. And there you go. And I did. And I used Yvette's pillow. No one's going to tell her.
You know what else works on flies?
What?
In your home. You know what else works on bugs in your home?
What did you just say?
You know what else works for flies in your home?
Here's what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying Elksworth.
Elksworth?
Like some kind of chemical.
Ah, yes. What you need to do is get yourself a super soaker.
Ah.
Just the water. Hit it
but then
with water.
Leave water all over the window. Water spots. Come on, Joel. See, you're not.
But you're thinking about shooting it with rock salt.
Well, yeah. We can vacuum it up.
That would have splattered the bug against the window, and you would have had bug guts.
See, that's why the pillow was brilliant, because it's soft enough not to leave splattered fly on you.
Well, anyhow.
It was brilliant. It worked. 2 shots, boosh, he's gone.
Boom,
but there's
done.
still,
yep.
But his body is laying up on the ledge, up on the window.
No, so the evidence is the corpse is still there.
Yeah, and you can see it from the 2nd floor. So I'm still going to get the ladder.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
the scene of the crime. Yeah.
So have you ever Have you ever spooked yourself so bad you do something completely ridiculous? So, so I'm reading or I'm watching YouTube, right? And I'm watching stuff on snakes because it's whatever pops up. Taking a break, I'm watching this thing on snakes. And from snakes, it goes to aliens on YouTube, like alien abduction. Okay, so I'm watching these videos and I'm like, I'm sure my eyes are bigger than silver dollars. And then I realize, oh crap, it's 3 a.m. I gotta go take the garbage out. Right? And I gotta get the mail.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. I wish there was somebody who could protect me. But nope, I gotta go out there and venture out.
After you've been watching these videos about snakes and aliens.
Snakes and aliens, but you got to hear this, what happened to me. Oh my God. So I go, this is true. I swear to God on this. So I first walk to the mailbox and I get the mail. And of course my head's on a swivel because I just got done, watching things that are things that can
yourself
get you.
Out. Yeah.
Things that can get you. And I swear to God, I hear hissing. And I'm like, and so my head's going, darting back and forth, back and forth. And I hear this hissing's getting louder. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe it's not a snake. Maybe it's a fuse to a bomb.
Or it's a sprinkler in your neighbor's yard.
No. So I'm walking on the grass and I hear this, and I run to the garbage can that I'd taken out. I flip the lid open thinking there's something in there that's going to blow. And then I run back over to the other side. And then I'm hearing the hissing. And then, the sprinklers popped on. That's all it was. But, oh, my God. If someone would have been filming me, it would have been pretty comical.
That would have been comical. Comical for 2 reasons. A, you would have been the first man to be attacked in Minnesota by anaconda.
Or a sprinkler.
Or a sprinkler, because we don't generally have exotic snakes in the Northland.
Not only was it hissing, but it was going bloop, 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 and it just never occurred to me it was the sprinkler system.
Well, it freaks everybody out. The dark does.
Oh my God!
It will.
No
you know who it wouldn't have freaked out?
What?
I'll tell you who it wouldn't have freaked out. Our guest tonight, David Weatherly.
Yeah,
it would not have freaked him out.
Would have freaked anybody out.
No.
Not David? Okay.
Not David. No, David's the real deal. He's gone to every haunted house. He's gone to every deep, dark corner of the world. We're going to be talking with him tonight in this bottom of the hour. Go and hang out for that one. David Weatherly, cryptozoologist plus paranormal investigators, coming on the show tonight.
And he's got some cool books.
Yes, he does.
He does. Specific states.
Yeah, that's what I like about that. He's doing state-by-state stuff, which is really cool because I like reading that because you get the kind of local flavor of that state.
Well, the other thing is you got to ask him then, when are you going to have all 50 books done?
Yeah, right. So, that's bottom of the hour. Just a few minutes here, in fact. He'll be on.
Yeah.
Not to diminish your story of frightening.
No, my story was
sprinklers.
Stupid. It's just, I was literally embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, good thing no one was around to see it, number one. And number two, it happens to the best of us.
It does?
It does. It happens to the best of us.
Or just me? Well, the thing is, I swear to God, every time I got to go wander around outside in the middle of the night, and hey, at 3 a.m, something could snatch your butt up. Nobody would know. No one would see it. No one would know. You'd just be gone.
Most of us are sleeping at 3 a.m.
Well, I know, but I'm not.
I know you're not. You never sleep. You're like a vampire.
Oh, hey, somebody made me show them my cross today on my neck because they were accusing me of being a vampire. I'm like, dude, I was on a Zoom call.
Oh, gee, where would they get that idea from?
I don't know. I swear to God, they were serious.
Oh, they weren't joking. They weren't being facetious with you. They were actually
I don't know. It was
serious that they thought that you were one of the Legion of the Undead.
Yeah, could have been.
And did you produce the cross?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
there you go. All questions are answered right there.
Yeah, I had to put it right in front of the camera.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you do Zoom calls much?
Not really. No. I generally use the phone.
Yeah, I don't like Zoom calls.
You know, generally speaking, I'll
'Cause
use if I have to do a conference call, just use the iPhone.
Well, it's distracting because really all you want to do is go through the business, whatever you got to talk about. You don't need to be worried about whether someone's got a cross on.
Yeah. I mean, it must have been something to do with one of your entertainment ventures. Yeah.
Yeah, it was another paranormal investigator actually.
Really interesting.
Wasn't
Really
Dave?
interesting.
Wasn't Dave?
Yeah. No.
I talked to
I'm sure it
David
wasn't.
today. Super interesting guy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got 8 million questions.
Good. And I'm sure he'll have 8 million answers for you. So
Yeah.
he's been around a while. He's done a lot of things. He's really, really knowledgeable. I enjoy listening to David talk every time I get a chance to hear one of his interviews
Well,
or interview him.
They call him the Renaissance
Yeah.
man of the paranormal.
Yeah, he's a really good guy too. David's a very nice guy.
He lives in Georgia.
Yes, he does. I think Savannah, if I'm remembering
He's got
correctly.
Georgia manners.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So again, bottom of the hour, just a few minutes. So nothing really of the paranormal or scary or strange.
Yeah,
has happened
actually,
to me,
I
Doug.
just okay, listen to this. I literally just got this in from David Ellis, somebody he knows. Apparently had a Sasquatch literally run their fist through their picture window at their house.
Damn.
And it's big. I mean, the hole in the window went through two. It's a thermal pane.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you about thermal panes. There was one I had to dispose of one time that, had leaked, and they fog up.
The argon gas that's
Yep.
inside.
And so
of it. Yep.
I decided to replace it myself. But one of the things I did was I had to destroy the old one. I wanted to break the glass, sweep it up, put it in the garbage can. I threw a sledgehammer at the glass and it ricocheted off. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I grabbed another hammer, boosh, and it just ricocheted off.
Jeez.
That's some tough glass.
That is some hard glass.
So when I see a thermal pane that's got this has got to be almost a foot across. Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to tell. It's big. It's definitely at least 8 inches. And it's apparently whatever it was stuck its fist right through. Property's got a lot of activity, similar to where we have our cameras.
Jeez.
There was no debris inside the home, and so they're going to collect the glass in hopes there's some DNA.
Yeah, right. That's
Yep.
a perfect opportunity
Yep.
to collect some more DNA.
So they've got a number of Bigfoot recordings there on the property. This has been going on since before she even owned the home.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so,
these
Ellis.
yeah.
So this is the kind of thing that would happen to me right before I got to go outside to get the mail at 3 a.m. See, this is what I'm talking about. Right here.
Well, Doug, what is the strangest thing that you have ever personally witnessed for yourself?
Oh my God, that's a can of worms. And that's okay. You just brought up a good point. That's exactly why my head's on a swivel, because I have seen things.
Yes.
I have had the crap scared out of me, just totally unexpected. I've seen some amazing, bizarre. Yeah, I'm happy I saw it, but at the time, not so much.
You've had some weird things happen to you. Even growing up, you had some strange
a few things,
experiences. So I understand. What I'm trying to say is I understand your apprehension.
Yes.
Because you have witnessed some
Well,
very
I
strange
turn into a
things.
10-year-old kid, Joel.
Yeah.
When I'm an old dude. I go out to the mailbox 3 a.m. and it's that witching hour, the thing, and you just get done spooking yourself.
Yep. Exactly.
Like David Ellis will send you pictures like this, and you're like, and reports, and you just your brain starts going zzz, because you remember monsters are real. A couple of rules here. One, monsters are real.
Ghosts are real too.
Ghosts are real. Oh, I've seen them too.
Yep,
Ghosts are real. Monsters are real. UFOs are real. Aliens are real. What the heck? Why would we even venture outside?
Whenever anyone says ghosts aren't real, I say, I got a story for you. Exactly. And I tell them my story at the radio station.
Exactly. And you know
Talking to a dead guy for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And by the way, I talked to a guy who is like a very respected person of his entire community, right? He is like the number one guy that everybody respects in this community. And he's telling me this story one time where he was at a casino, but they were going to tear the casino down. So he was taking one last walk through this place before they were going to bulldoze it. And he sees his uncle, sits down and talks to him for over an hour. And
wow.
He gets done and says goodbye, whatever. And he goes, hey, I ran into Uncle so-and-so. And his other relative said, Uncle so-and-so died yesterday. You didn't hear? And they're like, and he's like, what are you? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because he was like, so good to see you. And I mean, but when you can talk to a ghost for over an hour.
Right.
That's not like a mistake.
No, it's not.
And when someone doesn't even know they're dead.
Yeah.
Even more so.
I think that's part of it, though, is you don't know they're dead. So you're able to have that non-judgment of what you're dealing with.
Is that quantum physics, maybe, where something is two places at the same time? Because the person like you or this man I just mentioned doesn't know they're dead, so therefore they're alive in their brain.
Yeah.
Therefore, they appear in two spots, both wherever the afterlife is and the current.
Could be. I mean, I can't explain it. I can't explain. You know, since that happened to me, I've talked to hundreds of people with similar accounts just because I was so fascinated by it. So I reached out and being a radio host and getting as many as I could accounts. And I mean, you know, some of them obviously you'd have to hit the BS button on, but a vast majority of them were genuine.
Yeah.
You know, I had no idea this individual was no longer with us.
Right.
I see them all the time, so I wouldn't think twice about seeing them. So I just talked to them like I always did. And then I find out that they're no longer with us anymore. They're dead. And then as soon as that light bulb kicks on that they're dead, it changes their worldview of what they're dealing with. At least it makes them question the things around them.
Well, it's like the past and the present are all mixed up, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's been times where I've heard a vet come home, pull the pots and pans out of the drawer, getting ready to make you hear the silverware drawer, you hear the knives rattling, you hear all the stuff, and you know that they're home, but they're not.
Right, and then it also begs the question, is that maybe a residual? Because she's done it so many times, imprint on the atmosphere.
Right, or she's thinking about doing it and driving.
And that is just as fascinating, that we would have that ability to imprint on our own environment what we're doing repetitively.
So how do I know I'm really talking to you?
That's how you know.
I wonder if there's ever been somebody that's had a conversation with a ghost on a video camera, like a Zoom call.
Yeah, I have a whole book about it.
On Zoom or Skype?
On everything. Yeah, I should get them on the show. A couple gentlemen. They're both scientists. They took it upon themselves to do case studies on people that were reached out by ghosts, whether it's phone. One guy heard about it from a car stereo. Was holding a conversation. No, but they're actually reaching out
live on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Skype to a dead person.
Exactly, that has happened.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Hey, I'm just saying The reports are there that it has happened.
Oh, okay. We only have 1 minute. I got to tell this quick story.
Okay.
On the camera, you know those cameras, we have 8 of them. Adam calls me up and he goes, Doug, you got to check this clip out. And he sends it to me and I look at it. And it's a footage of a bear. You're right, from above. It's a camera that's aimed up. And it's a bear. And all of a sudden this orb flies over the top of the bear. And then the bear glitches forward, like 20 feet forward. And then, but before he glitches forward, he starts material. It starts like appearing. And then all of a sudden he goes, zick, and he glitches to where he was starting to materialize.
Well, that's strange.
And the coincidence of the orb.
This Labor Day, put an end to junk sleep. Right now at Mattress Firm, save up to $500 on our top-rated brands when you get a king bed for the price of a queen or a queen for a twin. Plus, get a free adjustable base when you spend $6.99 on Sealy. Or save up to 50% on hot buys from top brands like Sleepy's or Serta. With our highly trained sleep experts and our low price guarantee, you can rest assured you'll get the best bed at the best price. Unjunk your sleep. Only at Mattress Firm. Offer valid with qualifying purchase. Restrictions apply. Valid at participating locations only. For offer details, visit mattressfirm.com/sale.
This Labor Day, HomeDepot.com is your one-stop shop for all things decor, with up to 30% off furniture, mattresses, home decor, and kitchenware. Online, it's a Labor Day savings event. Out there, it's a whole new way to enjoy your space. Whether it's finishing touches or a total transformation, find everything you need to make your home feel more like home at HomeDepot.com/decor. Free delivery on select items $45 or more, U.S. only, valid through September 15th, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And the bear, and the glitch, and yet the time code steady. So
you're gonna have to talk to David Weatherly about that one when we have him on too. Ask if he's ever seen anything that strange. We're gonna get out of here. We're gonna come back. In fact, we're gonna have David with us. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's It's a shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Highcheck. Doug, we made it past the break. I did see the bear video, by the way, that you sent over. That is creepy. That is strange.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. You know,
I have never seen
glitches.
anything like that at all, where glitches like that.
But if you scrub it, if you go to the bottom of the video, and then where you can scrub it back and forth, you actually see the bear start to, you know, appear, but he's not there where he's starting to appear, and then he glitches.
Right, yeah. That is definitely strange. We got a great guest on tap tonight, everybody. We have David Weatherly with us. David has been around the paranormal for many, many years. Prolific author, let me tell you. I mean, he's written a ton of books. From the specters of dusty castles to remote haunted islands, from ancient sites to modern mysteries, he has journeyed to the most unusual places on the globe, seeking the unknown. David became fascinated with the paranormal at a young age. Ghost stories and the accounts of weird creatures and UFOs led him to want to discover more. His early influences were John Keel, Hans Holzer, and Joaquin Vallee. Am I saying that correctly, David? Joaquin, right?
No, that's Jacques Vallee.
There it is, Jacques Vallee. I don't know why I was going Joaquin. For some reason, I was thinking Joaquin Phoenix. The spelling is very similar. So anyhow, you have been around the paranormal, David. How many years now?
Oh, gosh. I got interested in this stuff when I was a teenager and actually started actively investigating when I was a teenager, which would have been in the 70s.
My God.
So it's like I was having a chat with Doug previously and telling him, you know, when I started doing this stuff, it was not hip or popular at all.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it wasn't part of pop culture like it is now. And the joke I always tell is that when I started in the field, if I went to a party and told people what I was interested in, I was guaranteed a nice, quiet evening alone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, Doug, he's been doing it forever. And I started in the early 90s, so not quite as early as you did. Yeah. But I remember those days. It was almost, may I say it, a little bit better in the early days because everybody wasn't doing it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting because, of course, now it's the polar opposite because when people find out what I do, you know, there's a line out the door because everybody has a story to tell. And I think that's one of the things that is a result of it being so popular, you know, all of these weird and mysterious topics. People are so fascinated now that there's a different level of comfort, in large part because of television. And that's a two-edged sword. We all know that. But the positive side of it being so much a part of the culture on television and everything is that people are more comfortable in general to share their accounts. And, you know, I'm old school. When I started doing this stuff, I took a very journalistic approach, and I would go in and talk to people. I still do that. As a matter of fact, I don't rely on the internet for my information. I like to talk to people. I like to go to the sites. I like to hear the accounts firsthand. And, you know, I like to go and root out the stuff that people haven't talked about, whether it's, you know, sitting in a bar or a coffee shop or whatever it is, and just getting people comfortable enough to know that I'm going to take them serious. That's how I always approached it in the past. And, you know, now, of course, we have to weed through the thousands of accounts that people post online, often anonymously, and, you know, determine, wow, where's the grain of truth here in all this?
Right? And that's the thing. You know, we've gone from people coming to us saying, hey, I don't want anyone to know this because I don't want them to think I'm crazy, but this is what happened to me, to, you know, raising their hand, listen to my story kind of thing going on. And so it is hard kind of separating that wheat from the chaff, I find, in today's day and age, just because, like you'd said, that double-edged sword, again, it's become so popular. So it's hard, you know, you got to kind of have your filters on pretty well to detect some of the things that might not be on the up and up.
Yeah, very much so.
Have you been able to hone in your lie detector, David?
Oh, yeah.
Has it gotten better and better and better?
It absolutely has over the years. And, you know, honestly, it was, I think the benefit for me is maybe the way I came into the field, because like I said, when I actively started doing this stuff in the 70s, you really had to dig. You had to communicate with people in person. That's a novel idea to a lot of the younger generations. And, you know, you had to sit down and, you know, you start to develop this sense of, you know, just listening very carefully, watching body language and being aware of some of the subtle things that go on. And you can distinguish those sort of gray areas where you can tell, okay, well, this person is adding to the story, or they're outright fabricating, or they're, you know, maybe filling in some blanks that they shouldn't be filling in.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely over the years, and just the whole approach I've taken, you know, personally to investigating this stuff, I've actively over my lifetime looked for different skill sets that would add to that. So, you know, I can tell you especially in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I knew a lot of law enforcement officers and spent a lot of time talking with them about, you know, how they approached people, how they listened to accounts, and what signs they looked for. And that was tremendously beneficial. I have a close friend who was a former Navy SEAL, and, you know, he talked a lot about situational awareness, and that's actually very useful, even if you're just sitting down talking to witnesses. So, you know, I think that it's important, if you're an investigator or researcher in this field, to never stop adding to your skill set. And even now, I still strive to do that and to understand, you know, just what other levels maybe people are overlooking.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, David, you know, we get new things all the time, like black-eyed children.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the new ones? Crawlers. People talk about the crawlers. Well, how do you deal with, you know, are you skeptical when these new kind of paranormal creatures and situations pop up, or are you extremely receptive? And why do you think new ones keep popping up?
Well, first of all, I'm always receptive to listening, because I think that's very important. If someone feels the need to share something, then I think it's important to listen to them if at all possible, you know, whether that's listening to an email or phone conversation or whatever it is. But, you know, all that being said, yeah, there constantly are different new things presented and strange things that are appearing. Honestly, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I actually never call myself a skeptic, just because I think that term carries so much, there's so many things attached to that word that I don't agree with. And in general, I don't care for people who are dedicated skeptics, because it's almost a religious fervor that they have to disprove everything. So I kind of avoid that word, although I am very careful when I listen to things and when I research something. And I can tell you, I have found plenty of things that I have, you know, come to the conclusion that, no, this is fabricated, or no, this is, you know, whatever the case is, that it's not a genuine phenomena. However, in terms of a lot of the new phenomena that keeps cropping up, I think a lot of this is actually not new. It's a re-identification of things that people have been experiencing for a very, very long time. You know, a lot of people jump to the conclusion that the black-eyed children is a phenomena that started in the 90s, and that it's an urban legend, or that it's folklore, yada, yada, yada. Well, one of the things I did, I wrote a book about it. I'm sure you guys know that. And one of the things I did when I researched that topic was I wanted to see if I could find traces of this back prior to the internet, and preferably prior to television. And I did. And what's interesting is I wrote that book in, the original edition came out in 2012. So in the years after that, there have been a lot of other researchers who are just fascinated by the topic and keep digging in. And, these accounts surface all the time that people are finding in old newsletters or old publications and so forth that have all of the identifiers of a black-eyed child account, but you don't hear that term ever used. That term, that acronym BEK, which is the common one for black-eyed kids, that's what was created in the 1990s with the Brian Bethel sighting.
Yep.
And if you strip that away and just look at the parameters of the encounters, then you'll find that there are actually a lot of old accounts that fit the same standards.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like you said, think that the ground zero is with Brian Bethel in Texas when he encountered his first black-eyed children at the mall. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of people think the epicenter started there. But you're right. If you do kind of track that phenomena back and you delete the word black-eyed children from it and you look at it as a case study, there is some, you're right. There is some evidence that's holding some water that people were having issues with these similar beings. They weren't always children either in the past cases.
Right, and this is an important point, not just with this topic, but across the board when we're exploring mysterious phenomena, because you have to very often strip away the modern identifiers and understand that if you're looking for history, you need to see it through the cultural lens of the region or the area, the people, the lens of the time period, and understand how they would identify these things. Another thing that I've been delving into a lot recently are early wild man accounts in the United States, particularly in the southern U.S. And so many researchers have just thrown these out the window because they say, oh, no, those all came from newspapers in the 1800s, and we know they fabricated stories. Well, yeah, we know the news fabricates stories now. It doesn't mean that everything that's in the news is a fabrication. So when you start looking at some of these accounts, yes, some of them are really wild and kind of out there. But there are other accounts that you can really set back and say, well, wait a minute. Here's a group of Native Americans that reported this, and a hunting party tried to take off after this creature, whatever it is. Well, they've identified it as a wild man. But again, bear in mind, 1830 or whatever, they weren't throwing around the term Bigfoot and Sasquatch in newspapers. So what are they going to call it? Well, it looks human. It's out in the wild. Oh, it's a wild man.
Yeah. And back then, the wild man term was more salacious.
Okay, confession time. I just finished back to school shopping. Nothing like the last minute, huh? Kohl's to the rescue. I got 25% off a JanSport backpack for my son, $17.99 So Jeans for my daughter, and 50% off Levi's for both kids. Levi's, can you believe it? I even got $10 off because I spent $25 and picked up Kohl's Cash. So, yeah, sometimes procrastination pays off. Select styles. 10 off 25 offer in September 6th. Levi's coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Right now, the gap between what you should save and what you can save has never felt bigger. The U.S. Bank mobile app can help by finding ways to help you reach your savings goals with personalized insights that fit your real life to make your financial goals feel within reach. Because even our tools are smart enough to put people first. U.S. Bank. We'll get there together. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Yes.
They would meet because they could identify with a wild man. So when I've looked at those old reports that you're speaking of, yeah, they're going to talk in, like you said, the dialect of their time. They're not going to say, well, there's a Sasquatch there, because they didn't even know the word at that point. It wasn't widely used. So they would call it that wild man. But if you read the individual, if you get to the root of it and you read the witness accounts of the wild man encounters, they're no different than the encounters that are happening today.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Like Jerry wasn't it Jerry Crew that coined the word Bigfoot, or the newspaper did. And I can only imagine how much just that new term damaged any kind of research. Silly name. Right. So to get back to the black-eyed children, I think I still don't think a lot of people know what that is. Can you explain what that phenomena is, David?
Well, the term in large part refers to these accounts that people are reporting of children, often usually between the ages of about 8 and early teens. And they show up at unusual places, well, just about anywhere. They've approached people in parking lots. They've come to people's homes. They've shown up at motel rooms, businesses, and so forth. And the pattern is always the same. They show up. They always knock. They never use a doorbell, for instance. So they show up and they knock at the door until someone answers. And when the person answers, they usually make some very odd request, or they'll say something that's very, just doesn't sound quite right. It's not how people speak, especially, young kids. So they'll say something like, oh, we just thought we'd stop by for a bit. Now, these are complete strangers, bear in mind. So the point is they always try to get inside. They always try to find a reason to be invited inside. So they'll say, well, we'll just come in for a brief visit. It won't take long. These things are really, in hindsight, for the victims, so to speak, is often very chilling. The kids speak in a very monotone manner. Their language is often described as being disjointed, or their appearance sometimes is said to be old-fashioned. They have very pale skin. They're typically described as wearing very nondescript clothes, grays, browns. Often the hoodie is one of the most common artistic depictions you see, because that's reported a lot. And at some point during the encounter, the witnesses will make eye contact with these kids, or vice versa, and the witness will realize that these children have solid black eyes. So there's no white, it's just an entire black sclera. And at that point, it kind of drives the victim over the edge. They go through these stages of feeling very nervous, uneasy, and once they make eye contact with these kids, the flight response kicks in. So they typically will slam the door, or just drive away, just get away from these children as quickly as they can. The curious thing about these accounts is that they are almost across the board the same, but there are some variations that creep in here and there. They've shown up all over the United States and all over the world. These accounts have come from places as diverse as the UK, Australia, South America. And the thing that fascinated me about the phenomenon when I started digging into it was the fact that it shares things in common with so many other types of strange entities. So when I wrote the book, I didn't push my own agenda. I didn't say this is what I think these things are. I drew comparisons to a lot of different things, basically argued several different points, with the goal of letting people decide for themselves and determine for themselves what they thought these things were. The strange thing is you can look at some aspects of it and it harkens back to old folklore. For instance, this whole idea of not entering unless they're invited. I mean, we all know that's a traditional vampire, popular concept, that a vampire can't cross the threshold unless it's invited in. But if we go even further back, the same is true within demonology. There's a concept that a demon can't enter a premises or a person unless it receives some kind of invitation. So we get this whole concept about the invitation, and then we get this this weird connection to the MIB, the men in black, because here we have what appear to be humans, but they don't quite act like humans. Some people find them a little bit robotic. Same with the children, the black-eyed children. Some people say, no, they're almost a little bit robotic or alien, and they're saying things that don't make sense. There was a case that I had received. It was a woman she was working on a project in her home, and she was almost finished sorting papers or something, and this knocking came at her front door, and it just wouldn't stop. It was just this constant knock, knock, knock. And she was so aggravated that she threw her work down, and she went to the door and flung it open, and she used some colorful expletives when she flung the door open, and said, why don't you use the bleep bleep doorbell? And she pointed at the doorbell. Now, she did this just sort of on autopilot, and after she had made the statement, she realized that there were these children standing on the porch, and they sort of looked at her, and they looked over at the doorbell, and then back at her, and did this a couple of times. And she said that the expression and the mannerisms, it was as if they had no idea what she meant by a doorbell. Mm-hmm. So, that's just a couple of the connections that I draw in the book. There are connections to some ghost stories. There are ghost stories where these spirits show up with black eyes or no eyes at all, just hollow cavities where the eyes should be. So, curiously, you could draw comparisons between the black-eyed kid phenomena and a range of different supernatural things. And a lot of people sit firmly in one court or other. A lot of people believe there's some kind of alien hybrid. Other people believe there's something demonic. But the jury's still out, of course.
Now, David, keeping with the black-eyed kids really quickly, have you ever talked to someone that let the children in, and when they are in the home, what happens? Are they violent, or what occurs after they've come in?
Yeah, there's an account in the book. It's not a home, but there was an incident that a woman reported to me, and she, I'll give you the sort of condensed version. She was headed home, and she had her own child in the back seat of her vehicle. She stopped by a convenience mart to grab a couple things, bread and milk or whatever. And when she did, she jumped out of the vehicle. She left her child in the back seat. And this is a rural area. She was very comfortable doing this, something she'd done lots of times. And she ran in, and in those few moments when she came back out, again, someone sort of on autopilot, she jumped in the vehicle, and she tosses the groceries in, and she's turning the ignition as she's looking up in the rearview mirror, and she sees her own child, who was sitting directly behind her, but an additional child who is now sitting right beside her son, not on the other side of the seat, but just abutted up against her own child. Yeah. And this kid is looking back at her in the rearview mirror, and he has solid black eyes. She went into just complete panic and jumped out of the vehicle, yanked the back door open, pulled her own child out, ran back in the convenience store. The clerk rushed outside to, after she told him, somebody was in her vehicle. The clerk rushes outside to see what's going on. There's nothing there. And this is typical in black-eyed child accounts too. These kids vanish as quickly as they appear, it seems. So anyway, the woman was so shaken up that she didn't want to get back in her own vehicle. She ended up calling her husband, and she said, just come up to the store and meet me. And she wouldn't explain why. When he got there, she switched vehicles with him. She took his vehicle and their son and went home. He took her vehicle. Partway home, he was in an accident, totaled the vehicle, and ended up in the hospital. They thought he had a concussion, and he didn't know exactly what happened. He reported that the last thing he remembered was some kind of odd odor in the vehicle, but he didn't report seeing a child or anything. Now, in the aftermath of this, it came out that in conversations with the child, she tried to determine exactly what had went on. And she said, what do you, do you know that boy from school? And the response was, no, I don't know him, Mommy. And she said, well, why did he get in our vehicle? And the child responded, well, I asked him to get in. I thought we could go home and play. Gotcha. So this child had received an invitation. This black-eyed child had received an invitation, gotten in the vehicle, and was in close physical proximity to her child. And what happened was the father ended up getting out of the hospital, but the boy who had had such a close encounter with the black-eyed child became ill, and they had to take him to the doctor. The bizarre thing was that the doctors could not determine what was wrong with this child. They went through a whole litany of things. They were convinced they had the right diagnosis. They thought at one point, it's appendicitis, and then, they said, it's this, and then, at one point he broke out. They thought he had the measles, and this went away, and then they said, it's something else, and the parents finally said, the doctors had said, we think he's got some kind of bad flu. And the parents just wanted to get out of the hospital at this point because they hadn't admitted that they thought by now that it had something to do with this bizarre child they had encountered. Yeah. So they said, yeah, that's probably right. We'll just take we're going to take our child home and just monitor him and, bring him back if anything happens. So they ended up basically nursing this child, but they also kind of reverted back to religious belief. They weren't spiritual people when this happened. They had, fallen away from their religious practices, but sort of went back to that. And they believed that it was prayer that finally brought this child out of the bizarre, collection of illnesses that he was suffering, because he did recover.
Well, thank God for that he's okay, that he made a recovery.
Yes.
But that is a chilling tale. I could not imagine looking in the rearview mirror and seeing that creature there, whatever it is, black-eyed child, demon, whatever, put a name you want on it. But that is a heck of a encounter.
Are you still collecting stories on these black-eyed kids, David?
Well, I still get accounts sent to me, and I think some people would be happy if I just kept putting out books, with collections of the stories, but I really don't. I wrote the one book, and never say never, right? But it pretty much was for me a complete overview of the phenomenon. Anything beyond that, the stories, to a degree, and this is not to degrade anyone's encounter or experience, but the stories get kind of redundant because they're all saying the same thing. So until there's something that's clearly new or some other way that we can approach this and say, well, wait a minute, let's look at this angle. I don't at the moment intend to write any more books about it. But people still send me accounts, and occasionally there are odd twists or changes in the encounters. But the basic, sort of standards seem to always be there, though.
Do you ever say to yourself, in the era of camera phones being so ubiquitous now, I mean, everyone's got an iPhone in their pocket, why not flash a picture? You know what I mean?
Well,
you're having this long, drawn-out conversation, these black-eyed children, come on, flash it. That's my question half the time is, take a picture.
Right. But you hear that about a lot of things. People are constantly saying, why aren't there better pictures of Sasquatch that aren't blurry and so forth?
Good point.
And, here's the thing. I always have a camera with me. I mean, even before cell phones, I always, if I was driving or whatever, I'd always have a camera right beside me. And I can remember a very crystal clear incident. I was on a back road in Arizona and, came around this bend in my Jeep. And right there, dead center in this dirt road, was this beautiful lynx crouched down in the road, facing the side of the road. For some reason, he was so focused on something that he hadn't heard my Jeep initially. And of course, I hit the brakes, and guys, I grabbed my camera. My hand was on my camera as I was putting the brakes on. and pulled it up to the windshield because what an incredible picture. But in those seconds that it took me to flip that camera on, that lynx leapt into the bushes and he was gone. Yeah. So, if you think about that, that's a known common animal. Science will tell us, oh yeah, they exist, they're documented. And it was surprising, but it wasn't shocking. So imagine someone who is not expecting to see something that's, 7 or 8 feet tall and ape-like, walking across their hiking trail or something. What's the reaction time going to be cut down to? They're not expecting that, and a lot of people that I've spoken to about these different types of things, some people don't even think about it until afterwards. They'll say I was so stunned, or I was so, I was trying so hard to look at this or understand what I was seeing that no, I didn't take a picture, or by the time I got my camera phone on, it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been in that same boat where
I'm a business-owning, meal prepping 24/7 supermom. But who isn't nowadays? And for me, first day of school success begins at Office Depot Office Max, where everything my kids need to start the year strong is in one place. Like a laptop for my high schooler, backpacks and notebooks for the little ones, and hand sanitizer for all of the above. I can even order things for my business. It's all available in-store and online at OfficeDepot.com and at low prices all season long. Office Depot Office Max. Their business is to keep school going.
¿Por qué esta Coca-Cola de McDonald's sabe tan bien? ¿Será la máquina? ¿Será el popote o el hielo? O quizás soy yo.
No sé, Diego, pero vámonos, ¿no? El ¿por qué esto sabe tan bien deal? Un refresco de cualquier tamaño por $1, solo en el $1, $2, $3 menú de McDonald's. Precios y participación pueden variar, no se puede combinar con cualquier otra oferta o combo mío. Coca-Cola es una marca registrada de The Coca-Cola Company.
It was an afterthought. Why did I not get a picture? Because I'm always thinking to myself, I'm going to get a picture of this. I'm going to get a picture of that. When the phenomena does happen, it's like, oh my God, I missed out because I wasn't either quick enough with the camera, because I wasn't expecting it, or B, it didn't even cross my mind because what I was witnessing was just so awe-inspiring at that moment.
Usually it doesn't even cross your mind. It's just, you're trying to figure out what you're looking at.
Yeah,
exactly. Because you get in, there's the psychological aspects of people dealing with or trying to comprehend strange phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it is interesting that there's certain categories like Mothman, Dogman. We really don't have any videos or film or photos of either of those. But yet, I don't think there's a shortage of witnesses.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And, we can talk about these things from a logical perspective, but then if we really go down the rabbit hole, we can start looking at the fact that, there are indications that that the unknown may have a level of consciousness that we're just not even thinking about in terms of how it can interact or understand what's going on. And, how aware is it? How much is it intentionally screwing with humans?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. There is some of that going on.
Do you think that's kind of what's going on? And sometimes do you ever suspect that it's like another dimension is just messing with us? Like it's got a sense of humor, with all these weird things like Dogman and Mothman. I mean, people get really scared. Or do you think it's something that wants to feed on our fear?
Well, I think it can be both. But I'll tell you, John Keel was a big influence on me. And, his approach and his idea of looking at things holistically is how I always approached things. There are, I've got files and files of people who have reported both a Bigfoot and a UFO. And I know that you bring those accounts to a lot of the traditional organizations, they don't want to hear it. They'll listen to the Sasquatch account or they'll listen to the UFO account because that's their That's their area, but don't go outside of those lines because it doesn't fit their paradigm. And the thing is that we can't really examine something that is so unknown in such a restrictive fashion. And I do sincerely believe that there are things out there, whether they're, I tend to think a lot of this stuff is interdimensional. And I think that science is eventually going to get around to backing that up. I know that native cultures, for thousands of years have talked about these ideas of other levels of existence. And now quantum science is finally coming around to this concept and saying, oh, yeah, well, we know there's, 12 other levels of existence. We don't know what's there, but we know they're there. Mm-hmm. So, my question is always, well, just because we can't get there doesn't mean that whatever's there can't get here. And,
very true.
Of course,
good point.
That's intriguing and unsettling for some people at the same time. But, in terms of this other level of consciousness, I'll give you a great story. And it's one I've told a few times, but and it did appear in print in a chapter I did for one of my buddy Nick Redfern's books. I had an incident that occurred, and what happened was I had sent a copy of the Black Eyed Children book to a friend of mine, and he was he's an investigator and is very interested in strange phenomena, cryptids, and so forth. And he didn't start reading it right away. He had the book, and just one evening, in fact, I was actually sitting working on another book, and I got a call from him on my cell phone. I answered it, and it was just dead air, static or something. I thought, oh, well, just pocket dialed or something, and kind of brushed it off. So what happened was these calls started to come in frequently. His number would ring my cell phone, and, a lot of times it would be I wasn't around, and I would get these just nothing messages. And it got to be a little bit annoying. So I remember distinctly one night, I had gotten up from my desk, and when I came back, there's a message on my phone. I listened to it. It's this long message, and all I hear in the background are these kids laughing. Now, I wasn't at the time I wasn't even thinking about the Black Eyed Children. Like I said, I was working on a different project. And I knew that my friend had a young child. So my immediate assumption was, okay, well, his kid's got a hold of his phone. So I shot him a message, and I said, look, man, I think your kid's got your phone and keeps calling me because, I had this message with this, kids laughing on here. And he apologized, and he said, oh, I didn't realize, she might have done that. It won't happen again. Well, of course it did. And the calls got stranger because they would come in at, 3 a.m. and different times like this. And I'm sitting working one day, and the phone rang, and I didn't even try to answer these calls at this point. But right after the phone rang, a few moments later, I get a message pops up from him on screen. And he's basically kind of a little bit freaking out. He's like, oh my God, I got to tell you this. So I talked to him and asked, what happened? He said, you're not going to believe this. But I was laying in bed, and I was reading your book, Black Eyed Children. My phone was in the middle of the bed. No one was touching it. He said, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it light up, and I looked at it. It was dialing your number. So we're both pretty mystified by this. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, this is different. So, he tries to be objective about things too. And he says, all right, well, I'm taking this thing to the cell phone company tomorrow and, get to the bottom of it. So the next day he takes the cell phone in. The techs have the phone forever. They bring it back. And bear in mind, there are all these logs where he's called my phone, but he hasn't. But it shows on the phone, and there are no other numbers that the phone is dialing. He's not doing this to anyone else out of his phone book. So the techs look the phone over, they examine it from one end to the other, they bring it back and they say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with your phone. We don't know why it's doing this. So he says, okay. So, he just kind of throws his hands up, and he tells me about this. Well, I think it's about a week or so goes by, and I get a mislog from him, and I hadn't had one for a few days, but then suddenly I get a mislogged log from him, and I hear from him later. And now this was the last time his phone ever called me. Mm-hmm. And it did it when it was on the dash of his car. It lit up, dialed my number as he and his friends are driving across the bridge into Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So, you know, for me, this was kind of a jaw-dropping moment. And I heard this, and I'm thinking, I just had this impression. It was like something saying, see, we can do what we want to. We can screw around. We can, we can choose how we're going to express ourselves or get messages through, or whatever the case may be.
One of my mentors, and I know you know him, Doug, Brad Steiger. I knew him very well.
Oh, yeah.
He's passed away now, but he was one of my early influences. I got to know him real well.
Super nice guy.
Because he was in Iowa and I'm from Minnesota, so we really kicked up a good friendship. And one thing he warned me about, he says, you're digging into this. Just remember, you start looking for it will start looking for you too. And strange things are not uncommon.
I said something similar to Doug today, because he asked me if I'd had any experiences, and I said, yeah, a lot of them. And I said, the thing is, if you start peering into the void, things start to look back. And that's simply the way it is. Part of it, you could say, well, the odds are in your favor if you're investigating this stuff full time and putting yourself in these situations. But you get its attention, it or they or whatever we're dealing with.
So during the time I was producing Monster Quest, we were literally driving south on 35W, Univet, and all of a sudden we see what looks like a winged Mothman drop down from the sky and zoomed right at our windshield. And we both got a great look at it, but then I'm thinking, I can't tell anybody this. I'm a Monster Quest guy. No one's going to believe us. But I did wonder, is that because I'm, so enthralled in all these monster sightings, and here I am seeing one. And we weren't talking about monsters, or, you know what I mean, David? It's just,
absolutely.
It's really weird.
Doug, did a little part of you, when you're doing Monster Quest and you're looking for monsters, and you hadn't had your own monster experience yet, did a little part of you question it, like skeptical of it? It was almost like you put the intention out to the universe, show me something.
Well, it was interesting because a year earlier, I didn't want to do a story on a Mothman, excuse me, because there was no evidence. Mm-hmm. And then this happened, and of course, immediately I started producing a Mothman show. Mm-hmm. Because at that point, I was put in my place, because my evidence was that I saw one. Mm-hmm. And it's just, but you wonder, it's like the universe has got a sense of humor and going, oh, really? You don't think they're real? Okay. It's great when you have a witness. Because if I wouldn't have, I really would have questioned my own sanity. Because this thing, David, it was within feet of my face. And you could see the wings, the bat-like wings, and the human-like face. And it was just, it was bizarre. The wings were as wide as the freeway.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that we have to start considering to a certain degree that, witnesses can be evidence in a sense, because I think that, of course, in a traditional sense, when people talk about evidence, they're talking about, quote, scientific evidence. But how does science define something that it hasn't defined yet? And, we're in territory now that even modern science, of course, I've had a lot of discussions with various people studying the quantum sciences. And, I had one of them was a very interesting conversation and basically told me that, science had reached this sort of zenith point where it had to confront God, as he said, to a certain degree. In other words, it had to start looking at spiritual or religious concepts to start to understand what's beyond, or how can we break past our own bounds, so to speak, of these traditional, it has to be studied in a lab. Because how do you put phenomena like this in a lab? You just can't. And, at the same time, I would argue that decades and decades of witnesses who all consistently say the same thing, it's just absurd to say, well, they're all making it up, or they're all delusional, or they're all, it's not a Sasquatch. They're all seeing bears or big dogs or, armadillos or whatever the latest ridiculous skeptical argument is.
David, only one has to hold water.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Just one, because then it proves everything.
Yeah.
And there's these people out there that, one thing I've noticed being a paranormal investigator myself for, like 30 years now, these people have nothing to gain to lie to me.
Right.
They have nothing. They're putting their own reputations on the line for a lie. Are you kidding me? Most people would not do that.
Right.
And so I don't believe everybody that comes to me, because there's obviously those people that are looking for that attention. But, when you look in their eye and you see that same fear that they had that day that this incident happened, and they're telling you every fiber of their being this happened to them, how can you not believe that?
Yeah. Exactly. Their experience is genuine, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At the very least, I believe they believe what they saw. At the very, very least.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the big trend right now, David? Is there some trend that's happening with the paranormal?
The Ford Mustang Mach-E, the F-150 Lightning, the E-Transit van, 3 of America's most iconic popular vehicles. They've been fully electrified, and they're making the revolutionary feel familiar. We've got a feeling they'll help make electric vehicles even more popular for all Americans. Call it a hunch. Ford electric vehicles, built for America, built Ford proud.
I know that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. If you're are you talking about paranormal in terms of, for instance, ghost hunting?
Well, it could be. No, I would say let's just knock ghosts out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking in other things. You could probably combine, any cryptid or UFOs, but people seeing something that's completely weird. Is there a new trend or something that's really trending?
Oh, in the last few years, you mentioned it earlier, are these dogman sightings, which, they're kind of confounding to a degree, just because, a lot of people are saying, well, I've talked to some researchers and they're claiming that there are just hundreds or thousands of these sightings, in their region. And we've gotten to the point where every little thing is a dog man, and if we were to listen to all of it, we would, have to believe that there are hordes of werewolves running all over the United States right now. But, the truth is, again, just what you said, Joel, only one has to be true, right? And there are some pretty compelling accounts out there. Once again, I think this is something that has a precedent, however, because I've studied a lot of early American folklore, and there are actually some pretty interesting and weird werewolf accounts from early America. I'll tell you one I uncovered from an old folklore journal. It's a very brief mention, but it talks about a timber company who's harvesting wood in the mountains of Pennsylvania. And they had a major issue because werewolves were attacking the horse-drawn carts coming down the mountain. So being a region that was full of Pennsylvania Dutch, they painted hex signs on the wheels of the wagons to ward off werewolves. So, you know, this kind of stuff is pretty fascinating to me, because I always like to look at always like to follow the trail, so to speak, and going backwards is also often very rewarding, because when you dig into the folklore of a specific area or region and you find connections to modern sightings, that makes it a bit more compelling to me to think, okay, well, maybe something has been going on in this region. And, you know, this particular area, there are a lot of dogman accounts in Pennsylvania. And of course, you know, when people talk about these things, some researchers will try to swear, no, it's not a werewolf. It's not a werewolf. It's a dogman. There's a difference. Well, when you get down to basic description, we're talking about a bipedal canid that is very aggressive. That sounds like a freaking werewolf to me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, the thing is that this lore, it was brought over, of course, by the Europeans when they settled North America. But there are scant pieces of some native folklore in different regions of the U.S. that talk about essentially werewolves. I mean, they had their own terms, but they're talking about these weird creatures that they knew existed in the deep woods. So, you know, I think this is something that the dogman sightings are not going to go away. And it seems to be something that people are really, really fascinated by. I know there are even some podcasts out there and shows that are specifically dedicated to just dogman accounts. And, you know, it's something that is, in a sense, it's a newer mystery, but of course, like I said, it's been around for a very long time, apparently.
You know, with the dogman thing, though, I've read a lot of reports, talked to a lot of people that claim that they've seen it. Like with Bigfoot, there's tracks, there's hair, there's tangible things that we can look at that's been left behind. As far as I'm aware, unless you're going to school me here, David, there's not one shred of physical evidence of a dogman, is there?
Well, there's a few purported cast of dogman prints, but I'll put it this way. I haven't personally seen anything yet that's really convinced me in those terms, in terms of, you know, physical evidence or whatnot. And I actually think that some of these accounts are Sasquatch sightings.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's, you know, just a Sasquatch that looks somewhat different or is deformed, or, I mean, gosh, these things are hair covered, you know, what's one going to look like with mange? You know, It's probably going to be a bizarre looking creature.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes good sense to me.
Yeah. And then, of course, some of the reports are very specific, you know, with the big pointed ears.
Yes.
And the very narrow waist, and the, you know, the back legs kind of look dog-like and backwards. So I don't know. You know, I've even given lie detector tests to dogman witnesses, and I think almost all of them passed.
Really? Yeah. Well, one thing's for darn sure. I won't want to run into one in the woods.
I wouldn't want to run one while I'm walking to my mailbox, Joel.
You know, I don't want to be the one guy that says, there's no dog man, then I run into one while I'm deer hunting or
by
something.
the way, David, you're going to have to listen to the beginning, because Joel said that whatever scares me would never scare you. And I'm thinking, I bet you David's just as human as I am.
Well, you know, Doug, you brought up an interesting phenomena before we had David come on. And now for everyone that's just tuning in, as we get to the bottom of the hour, we're talking with David Weatherly, author, cryptozoologist, and paranormal investigator. Having a great conversation with you, by the way, David. Thank you again for coming on.
My pleasure.
And you can get all of his books. I'm looking at them right now on Amazon. And checked Amazon. You can get them all. And if you want to get the Black Eyed Kids one, David, it's like $70 right now on Amazon. That was cool to see.
No, that's the old original edition. Yeah. There's a revised second edition that has more information in it. Now that one's available.
Gotcha. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. But you can get all of his books, of course, on Amazon. They make great gifts. You can even get them in Kindle form, paperback, you name it, you can get them. Before you come on, we're talking about electronic phenomena and ghost communication, Doug and I. And there is a long history of ghosts communicating using modern technology such as radios, telephones, even computers. Ghosts have reached out. Now, what's your take on that? I mean, it's nothing new, but it does seem to be increasing. There's a lot more, and maybe it's because of the interest in the paranormal has just become just so huge, and it's at a fever pitch right now. But there is a lot of people that are talking about, not EVP though. I'm not talking EVP, David. I'm talking they are just passively getting phone calls from the dead, and they're getting these messages. Do you see an uptick on that, like I do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it goes hand in hand with the popularity of the paranormal. Like you said, it's not slowed down any in the last couple of years, and the proliferation of all these ghost hunting shows and everything has kind of bred, thousands of groups literally across the country that all, they see a bunch of episodes of Ghost Adventures or whatever, and they decide, we can do this. They go out and buy a recorder and, a couple of pieces of equipment, and they're off ghost hunting. But I think that, really we can trace spirit communication all the way back, to things like spirit boards and things like that. People have always had this desire to try to communicate with the other side, whether it's to hear their loved ones one more time, or just to confirm that there is, something beyond this world. So it's natural that that's going to grow in terms of people using technological means to do that. So we sort of evolved from, talking boards and spiritualism and seances to, of course, EVPs that you mentioned, which, I can remember the first time I ever caught an EVP, it was with a reel-to-reel recorder.
Yeah.
Because that's what I had learned about from, Fate magazine or something.
Yeah.
And, of course, then it evolved into cassette recorders. And then you have this whole other side, which is called ITC, and it's people using devices, whether it's a hacked radio or something specifically built in order to try to get messages.
Yeah. SB7s and stuff like that. Yeah.
So these devices, they essentially scan very quickly through, frequencies. And the concept is that a spirit can utilize that to communicate and sort of pop words out there. Now, what's interesting is that this has become so popular, it's almost a field within itself. And, there are a lot of there's a lot of ghost hunters that call themselves scientific ghost hunters, and they, they don't want to use those devices. Well, that's not scientific. And, the truth is that all of this stuff that we're using when we're investigating a haunted location and this type of phenomena, it's all experimental. You can call it scientific if you want to, and you can try to take a scientific approach, but you're not sitting in a lab repeating an experiment, hundreds of times. This is experimental, and, personally, I'm fine with that, because I think that we're in such unknown territory that we just kind of have to keep testing and throwing different things out there to see what does work. In terms of using those devices, I've had experiences where I've just had absolutely stunning responses that, words have come through, SB7 or Frank's bots or different devices I have that, I just, there's no way, that can be random, that this sentence was put together in this way. But all that being said, I think that sadly, a lot of investigators start to use this as sort of a crutch because it seems an easy way to get, quote, evidence. So, I've seen people that walk in a location, and the second they're in there, they're turning, a hat shack on or something, and they run the thing the entire time they're there, and that's what they do. That's their investigation. And, I think that if you're that inundated with it, that you can start to put things together that don't necessarily, present that way, that you can really stretch the limits, so to speak. So I think, like a lot of the other equipment that, we have to use it as a component, but not as a whole. Because what really convinces me if I'm investigating a haunted location is when I get confirmation from multiple pieces of equipment that all indicate the same thing. That gets really interesting.
Yeah, you need more pieces to the puzzle than just the one thing. Because that's the thing. I tell people I've been working with sound for my whole career. I'm a radio engineer as well. And our brain likes to make sense of the nonsensical. We like to find patterns. When you listen to white noise long enough and you listen to bits and pieces of words, eventually your brain is going to be putting together sentences. And that's just how we're made. Yeah. That's just what we do. Yeah. That's what's kept us around as long. That's what's kept us around as long as we have. Also, was being able to fill in the blanks to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah, but we have to be careful when we're, examining things like this, because we can fill in the blanks to our detriment, or we can miss things. Exactly. I've seen people, so focused on the technology in their hands that, they miss a chair move on its own across the room. You have to have that situational and environmental awareness, and you have to understand the environment first. So, it's important to use these things selectively. And, then again, we have to also consider what is it that we are actually communicating with or interacting with. We were talking about how things will sort of respond to us, or, it's almost this trickster-like energy that manifests a lot of the times. And I know that, there are investigations, I've been on investigations where, we've had tons of equipment, cameras, and all these things. And where does something manifest? It's in the spot that's not covered. I was in a extremely haunted location at one point. We had all these cameras wired up, and physically saw a window open itself. And, of course, it was on the side of the room where there were no reports of activity and where nothing, no camera was pointed at the time. So, what exactly is, what's interacting with us? Where does the trickster element come in? I think it's present a lot more than people realize.
Agreed.
Has there ever been any mainstream scientists that's investigated EVPs, gone out and actually gathered them?
They've been EVPs have been examined by scientists before. I don't know of one now that's actively working with these and trying to determine I know that through the ages, there's rumors that Edison was building a device to communicate with the dead. And, so I think that what we get into there is that there are scientists who are fascinated, but are concerned about their professional reputations.
Is it just us, or is this year flying by quicker than usual? At Care.com, you can find trusted, reliable, and affordable sitters near you, with flexibility that fits your family's ever-changing schedule. And because the best decisions are made with Care, 100% of caregivers who use Care.com have been background checked with CareCheck, a key first step for families to make strong hiring decisions. This fall, get help with activities, tutoring, drop-offs, pickups, and after school. Sign up now at Care.com.
Whether your kids are taking notes or passing them, reading textbooks or sending texts, there will still be lots to see this school year. And that's why Pearl Vision wants to help you ensure they see it all. So they're covering the out-of-pocket cost or your insurance copay for your eye exam. Schedule your family's eye exams at pearlvision.com. Valid prescription required. Valid at participating locations. Restrictions apply. Taxes extra. See store for details. Ends 10/31/2021. Exams available at the independent doctors of optometry at or next to Pearl Vision. Some doctors employed by Pearl Vision.
Yeah, I think the last one, to answer the question with Doug as well, is I think the last one I heard of that was doing something like that was Dr. Barry Taft. I think he was the last one, but then he was part of the he headed up the department. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah, it'd be great if there was more mainstream science to take a look at all things paranormal, not just ghosts, not just Bigfoot, but take it as a whole, because that's where the answer is going to be.
Yeah, and of course, we have parapsychologists who look at these things across the board. I mean, Lloyd Auerbach's a friend of mine, and he's just he's brilliant. So there are people out there who are very do take a scientific approach and are thinking about it and looking at it that way. And I would suspect that there are more than we're aware of. It's kind of the same when we get into the field of Bigfoot. How many scientists are really looking into it, that they'll admit to.
And exactly. And Bigfoot is just so fascinating, though. I mean, we have not yet even scratched the surface on that, I don't believe.
No, not at all. There's so much more, there's so much more history and there's so much more to learn and discover.
Yeah. That's an understatement. It really is. So how much time do you spend, David, dealing with, UFOs, aliens, abductions and that kind of thing? Is that part of your life or not?
It is some, yeah. It's another area of interest for me has been, like I said, when I get involved with this field, I sort of looked at the whole thing across the board, and I never compartmentalized it and said, okay, well, this is a separate field, and I can't study this if I'm doing that. And heck, in the 70s when I started doing it, you said the term paranormal, and people understood that you meant not just ghosts, but also, various types of Fortean phenomena, to UFOs and cryptids and so forth. But of course, it got hijacked by the television shows somewhere along the way, and now people think that paranormal just means, ghost, and no, exactly, it means beyond the normal. Look the definition up. So, one of my pet peeves, I think, over the years, that people have sort of co-opted that. But it just depends on what cases come to me, what area I'm researching at the time, what book I'm working on. So lately, I've really kind of been delving into the cryptid world a lot because I've been writing this series on state cryptids, and that's up to 7 books so far. So that has sent me, digging back through a lot of my files, and of course going to a lot of locations and talking to witnesses and so forth. But you just never know, because a fascinating UFO account could come to me tomorrow, and if possible, I would certainly investigate and so forth.
David, do you think there's a Bigfoot UFO connection?
It's really that's really difficult to say. It's kind of a puzzle, just because, of course, that kind of traditional researchers, that kind of blows their heads up if you start talking about that concept. And I don't believe that flying saucers are dropping big feet off all around the country or something like that. Which I've had people tell me. But at the same time, I think that there are. I'll put it this way. I think I know there are areas around the world of high strangeness where everything seems to be concentrated. And you get these reports of people that had a really fascinating account from Utah, from the Uinta Basin. And this woman, she reported seeing a UFO. And it was a very convincing account, and she was very hesitant to tell me the rest of the account, because she had also seen what she described as a Sasquatch in the backyard of her house at the same time. So, I think that we have to consider what about this phenomena affects things across the board. Is Sasquatch's animal-like to any degree? Is it being drawn to other weird things that are happening, whether it's, whether those are just earthlights or some other kind of bizarre phenomena. And I think when we start looking at these window areas, these areas of high strangeness, all the rules kind of go out the door. And you have to say, all right, well, yeah, maybe anything's possible in this region.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, look at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, well, that's in the Uinta Basin. And, a lot of people... Just as
an area...
Yeah.
And it's just crazy over there, Skinwalker.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, what's fascinating about a lot of these places is, once again, I love to dig into the folklore and native traditions when I examine a region. And over the years, I've been very blessed to have known a lot of Native American people. And you'll find that many of these areas are often taboo to the tribes in the area. So there are parts of the Uinta Basin that are just, the native people don't go there, and they have good reason for not going there. The Superstition Mountains in Arizona is another spot, that area is taboo to some of the native tribes. And, they tell strange stories. They have lore about the Lizard King that lives in the superstitions. That's the lizard people. That's their domain. And if you go there, you may be taken. And the Superstition Mountains, there are a lot of UFO sightings. There are a lot of strange disappearances, a lot of weird cryptid reports. So again, an area that seems to be a concentration of weirdness. And we go all the way back to the oral tradition of the native people. They've always known that, hey, there's something's different there. The normal laws don't apply there. And, we stay away from it. You white people can do what you want, but we're not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they knew better.
Right.
They knew better through their own living there and their own oral traditions. I mean, look at the native. What I find fascinating about the Native American tribes is, of course, their wisdom on the land, but also they're mentioning a Bigfoot. Tribes have never met each other have the same story, almost exactly, to describe Bigfoot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all over the United States and up into Canada. And I've heard so many native people, talk about these creatures and tell stories. It's fascinating. And it's interesting too, because of course they refer to them as physical creatures, as another race of beings. But then they also tend to sort of give them some other qualities sometimes. And, this is one of the things, again, a lot of researchers have just discarded a lot of the Native American accounts because, I've heard this time and again, people will say, well, no, that's, the natives just had superstitions about it or folk tales as part of their, traditional lore. It is, but if you take the time and really try to understand their viewpoint and again see it through their cultural lens, you'll learn that there are things that they perceive as being strictly in the spirit world, and there are other things that they perceive as being here in this physical world, and everything really is part of the spiritual world. So, people have a hard time with some of the native accounts because you hear these reports of, they saw a Sasquatch and it just sort of disappeared. And, a lot of the people that talk about, I'm sure you guys know the whole subset of sort of the Bigfoot field where there are people who believe they're these, highly ascended beings or whatever who are in telepathic communication and, they dropped out from Alpha Centauri or whatever. And, that's a stretch in the other direction. So, I think that we have to try to listen to these traditional accounts from people and try to understand it and understand maybe how they're interpreting something that, they don't understand any more than we do in a sense. So, one of the things that gets people really worked up is this idea that Bigfoot is, running in and out of portals because, the accounts where they just suddenly disappear or quickly gone and so forth. And, I don't go to that extreme, but I also frequently say that, Sasquatch, I think these things are physical beings, but I think they have some abilities that we don't quite understand yet from a scientific perspective. Now, whether that's infrasound, some kind of infrasound, or whether it's something else, it's hard to say. But, the analogy I use is this. Imagine for a moment the first guy that ever saw a chameleon. He's looking at a lizard sitting on a tree. And suddenly this thing's it appears to be gone, right? Because suddenly it's blended in with the tree. And, what would an early person who had no concept of that animal's ability, how would they interpret that? Or this animal, it disappeared,
like magic.
or, it blended into the tree, or, it did something. So, I think that may be what we're dealing with in terms of Sasquatch.
I guess the term would be super ability.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, well,
Possibly.
I could tell you guys this. When I've been hunting, I have a deer hunter. I have had deer 10 feet away from me, didn't even know it, in the woods. They're right there. And the woods are just that thick, where they are that still and they can blend in that good, that I've had deer, when I'm walking into the woods, jump up and run away from me. And they were like, literally, I'm telling you, I could have taken my barrel of my gun, outstretched my arm, and probably touched it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
What about missing people in the paranormal? Do you think there's a connection, or is it just people getting lost?
Oh, probably some of both. I know, David Paulides has done a lot of work on that with the Missing 411 series. And, of course, there's a precedent before that of mysterious disappearances. And nobody's come close to delving into all the vanishings in the national parks to what he's done. It's pretty compelling stuff. I think that, a lot of people go missing in this country every year. And, of course, again, a good portion of them can be explained, from crime or people intentionally running away or hiding or whatever. But I think, once again, there's probably just a small number of cases that are puzzling enough that they're, somewhat unsettling. And you have to say, wow, there may be something else going on here. I know that I've heard really old accounts from some Native Americans about tribal members disappearing and there being creatures involved, especially in some of the regions. Alaska is a place where there are stories of these creatures coming out and abducting humans. So, if you start to follow the pattern again, you have to wonder, well, exactly what's going on here. I mean, there are really old accounts of native tribes being at war with these creatures. Of course, the most famous one deals with the Paiutes in northern Nevada, and the whole legend of Lovelock Cave. And I've delved into that pretty extensively. That's a fascinating story. And the short version of it is that at some point in their history, the Paiutes, they were being attacked. There were raids, actually. These long-haired giants were coming down from the hills, and they were grabbing tribal members, sometimes kids or women or sometimes lone hunters. And these giants wore these baskets on their backs. The baskets were made with these sharp points that pointed down inside the basket, so that once someone was thrown in, they couldn't get out. And they would haul these things. These things would haul the humans off up into the caves, and they would eat them. They called the creatures the Sitika, and they finally decided that something had to be done. They got together with a couple of native neighboring tribes, and the warriors went up to this cave where these things were hiding out. They piled brush in front of the entrance of the cave, and they demanded that these things come out and fight like men. When the creatures refused to do so numerous times, the warriors lit the brush up and burned these things alive. Now, this kind of sounds to a degree like a fanciful story, but there are a lot of supplemental things that follow this tale. Sarah Winnemucca, whose father was a chief of the Paiutes, had a dress that had hair from one of these creatures on it. There are rumors that strange things were found in Lovelock Cave, large items that could not have belonged to the Paiutes. And the thing is that modern scientists and archaeologists, they say, no, this is, the Paiutes use these caves, and they insist on that. Now, here's what's funny. If you go up to Lovelock Cave, you can tour the cave. It's a historic site. There's really, no one ever really goes up there. There's a couple of placards out and talks about, life in the region in that time. And then there's a whole placard that was put up by the archaeologists that talks about the Paiutes using the caves. Well, that thing is permanently marred because members of the tribe went up there and they scratched out, so it's not even legible, the section that claims that the Paiutes used the caves, because they insist that they did not. Their entire oral tradition says that they were not cave dwellers. They never lived there. So, this is a case, again, of, let's not listen to the native people who really know what happened, and let's just say, what we think happened. It's kind of a fascinating story, and what gets crazier about this is that it seems to be, to a degree, some kind of cultural memory. However, I have found similar accounts in Idaho, Alaska, the Southwest. There seems to be almost, I hesitate yet to say it's, beyond the scope of the U.S., but I've had some indications that there are similar accounts from other countries. So there's this concept of this battle between, the people and some kind of giants that are preying on them. And that's pretty stunning when you think about the implications of that, because we're talking about, people that are we're not in communication traditionally, and they're reporting the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I remember the first time I ever heard about the Lovelock Caves and really kind of dived into it like you did. And my gosh, the tale and the evidence there, just their oral tradition, it's pretty compelling. It's pretty compelling stuff. I mean, really, I tend to believe this happened.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When you go up to the cave, it's. Of course, there's a modern platform built inside the cave, but it very much is like stepping back to, another time if you kind of ignore that. And, the walls, you can see all the evidence of the fire. I mean, the walls are still blackened from the fire that raged in there at some point. Yeah. And they had originally excavated the cave because of guano. They were harvesting guano out of the caves. And when the guys pulling that stuff out started digging, they started finding artifacts. And there's different stories about what they found. One of the things was a 15-inch sandal. And, of course, people say, well, no, that's nothing. There's plenty of people with 15-inch feet. Well, yeah, modern basketball players. But, we're talking about Paiutes in the 1800s. No, they weren't wearing 15-inch sandals. These were smaller people.
Yeah, back then, I think, if I remember correctly, if you stood 6 foot tall, you're a giant to them.
You were very large and usually a leader of the tribe.
So, David, we have 8 minutes. We want to hear maybe your best or worst encounters that you've had with whatever. What rocked your world, David? Something must have.
I'll tell you an early one, and I was thinking about it because you sort of asked me about it earlier today, Doug. In 1981, well, first of all, let me preface, I grew up in rural North Carolina. And like I told you guys earlier, I started exploring this stuff in the 70s. And, at that point, of course, In Search Of eventually came on television in the 70s. But, prior to that, I had found a few things here and there. Of course, Von Daniken's Ancient Alien stuff had come out. There were ghost books by Hans Holzer. And, of course, I was aware of Bigfoot, and that was in Northern California, as you know. But the area that fascinated me around where I was living was the Great Dismal Swamp. And this is a very strange place. It's on the border of North Carolina and Virginia. There were a lot of curious legends connected to the Dismal Swamp, and a lot of them were ghost stories and other weird things. And I probably, you know, being a bulletproof teenager, I guess I probably got away with doing a lot of things that, you know, older and wiser people maybe wouldn't survive, because the Great Dismal Swamp was not a safe place to just go, you know, trudging back into on your own. It's full of venomous snakes, you know, water moccasins, rattlers, you know, wild hogs all over the place. And anyway, I spent a lot of time trekking back in the swamp, often on my own, but sometimes with a couple of people in tow. And on one particular occasion, I had been tracing down a legend about a witch's house that was deep in the swamp somewhere, and tried to find it a couple of times, and finally ended up with a solid lead on how to get to it and where in the swamp it was. Took two friends with me, trekked way back in the swamp, finally found this place, which was just you know, an old shack almost that was kind of falling apart, and we explored it and investigated. And when we came back out, it had we'd been in there a lot longer than we intended. It took longer to get back there than we intended. And you know, we came out, and my immediate thought was, wow, you know, we're really going to have to move to get out of here, because it's getting dark fast. So, you know, started off, and I was always the point person, because I was, fortunately, for some reason, I was very good at navigating the swamp, and started getting this out. But it got dark very quickly. It was October, and at some point, you know, completely dark, but it was a full moon, so I was kind of thankful for that. We had moonlight to help, and I'm carefully getting us through. I reached a point where there was a large oval clearing, and I knew that I had to cut across this clearing just right to hit a game trail that would lead us on a good long stretch close to getting out. I stood there for a few minutes trying to get my bearing, and finally I kind of scanned the landscape and thought I knew where I wanted to go. And I saw what I thought were a pair of trees. And this is 20 to 30 feet away. I'm thinking, these trees look kind of odd, and I just don't remember this pattern. And I crouched down, I looked at them, I stood up, I looked at them, and then I suddenly realized that it looked odd because one of the trees only went up to probably 7 feet or so. And when I realized that, I realized something else. The swamp had went completely silent. There were no insects, there were no frogs, there were no night birds, there was not a sound. And that's something that kind of chilled me, because then I realized something is really not right. The hair kind of went up on the back of my neck, and I'm really focused on this pair of trees, just staring at it. And as I'm doing that, what I thought was a branch kind of drops, and the top half of this thing swivels, and I realized that it was a creature. The head sort of swiveled. We got some eye shine, sort of a reddish orange eye shine, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I really seeing this? I'm focused in on it. It sort of huffed really loud. It turned and it walked away. And I'm going to speed up because I really want to get this whole story out for you guys. Long and short, I told these guys, the other two guys were kind of terrified. They had seen it too. We got out of the swamp the rest of the way. I said, don't say anything. I said, go home, write down everything you remember, make a drawing, and let's talk about this tomorrow. The other two guys left. I went home. I did exactly that. First thing next morning, I called my one friend and I said, let's get together. Our drawings kind of matched. Our description matched. We're trying to reach the third guy. His name was Mike. Mike won't answer the phone. We try for a couple of hours. Finally, I'm like, let's just go to his house. We go to his house. We get there. There's Mike sitting there watching television. We walk in and we're like, man, we've been calling you all day. We want to talk about what happened last night. He says, what are you talking about? And, Wes and I kind of say, well, what we saw last night in the swamp, I don't know what you guys are talking about. this argument ensued, and so loud that Mike's father came walking in and said, what's all the shouting about? And Mike very angrily says, these guys are trying to say I was in the swamp with them last night. And his father looks at him very serious and says, son, you were. And Mike was so infuriated, he just stormed out of the house.
Oh.
This guy could never, he wasn't lying or anything. He had completely blocked out of his consciousness that he had even been in the Great Dismal Swamp with us that night, because he could not wrap his head around the experience. That was a pretty stunning experience for me for a lot of reasons. One is because I hadn't really thought about Sasquatch being in the Dismal Swamp at that point. So it gave me a whole new thing to study. It was a personal experience, obviously, which was mind-boggling. And, I suddenly realized the psychological implications that some people react differently. Not everybody can accept the comprehension of an unusual experience.
Like brain overload.
Yes.
Couldn't wrap his mind around what he'd experienced.
What do you think it was, David, that you saw?
Oh, I think it was a Sasquatch.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went back into the swamp the next day, and of course I looked for tracks, but the swamp was, where it was standing was in water, so there was no sign of that. I ended up getting a good estimate based on the tree that it was beside, that it was, somewhere around 7.5 feet tall. And later on, I did uncover a lot of other accounts in the Dismal Swamp. I had to pay for that, because I had to befriend moonshiners and drink some very bad bad moonshine just to get these guys comfortable to start telling their stories. But man, it's an area rich with legends, let me tell you.
And that, and being a kid, going back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, you had to been just a little bit terrified.
Yeah, well, I was a teenager by that point. And, I was, because I'd already graduated high school and, was actively dedicated to exploring this stuff. So, yeah, not really that kind of reaction. But,
okay.
Just the thing that, and of course, this has stayed with me throughout my entire career, understanding that people, they can't always accept what they're experiencing in ways, because it just, for Mike, it just did not fit in his worldview in any way. So the safest thing, I think, for him to do was just to block it out of his consciousness, out of his memory.
Oh, David, man, what a tale. What a night of conversation we've had about the strange and unusual. Been a lot of fun. How can people get a hold of you? Do you have a website out there? What's the best way to learn more about David Weatherly?
Absolutely. EerieLights.com. That is EerieLights.com. EerieLights.com. You'll find links to all the books, other projects. I've got a ton of stuff coming up this year, and there's lots of stuff on there on that website to explore. You can, like I said, links to all the books. There's other interviews and videos and various things I've worked on, some articles here and there, and there's a contact page. I always encourage people to get in touch with me if they have anything strange they've experienced. I love to hear people's accounts.
Very cool. Very, very cool, Doug. We've come to the end of another show.
David.
Boy,
Awesome.
David, again, thank you so much. It really flew by, didn't it? This is me, of course, Joel Sturgis and Mr. Doug Highcheck. We're signing off, but take care of each other, love each other, and sometimes the paranormal will find you.
Welcome to Everything Outdoors. Can I help you find anything?
Hey, yeah. Can you point us to the camping gear?
Sure, aisle 2.
Snowboarding? Just bought a new Nissan Pathfinder. It's got intelligent 4x4, and we want to hit the backcountry.
Aisle 18.
And the boats?
Are you sure you can do all this?
Up to 6,000 pounds towing, we're good to go. Oh, where's the scuba gear?
Return to rugged in the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. Available intelligent 4x4, cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capability varies by configuration. See Nissan Owner's Manual for proper use.
This Labor Day, HomeDepot.com is your one-stop shop for all things decor, with up to 30% off furniture, mattresses, home decor, and kitchenware. Online, it's a Labor Day savings event. Out there, it's a whole new way to enjoy your space. Whether it's finishing touches or a total transformation, find everything you need to make your home feel more like home at HomeDepot.com/decor. Free delivery on select items $45 or more, U.S. only, valid through September 15, 2021.